in order to go forward. So court will go on the record. Court is in session in the state of Idaho versus case number CR28-21. Mr. Logsdon is here representing the defendant. Ms. Perez is representing the state. This is the time set for hearing the defense's motion to suppress evidence. Is there anything we need to take up before we start the hearing, Mr. Logsdon?
Not that I'm aware of, Judge.
Ms. Perez?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Logsdon, you may proceed.
Your Honor, it makes the most sense to me to start at the outset of the case where it begins with the warrantless arrest. And so if the state wants to call the officer, that's fine by me. Otherwise, I can call him. It's up to them.
And Judge, in this case, I would stipulate there was a warrantless arrest, a couple times a warrantless seizure, and so I acknowledge the state has the burden in this motion.
Well, so Mr. Logsdon, are you just letting the state go forward then? Is that what your request is?
That was my thought.
All right. Ms. Perez, in light of that concession and the agreement of the defense, we'll allow you to put on your evidence first.
All right, call Blade Cousins.
All right, you've been called as a witness. Please raise your right hand to be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to present will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, and I'll ask that you please speak up a little bit since we're doing this proceeding by Zoom so that everybody can hear you on all parts of the call. You may inquire, Ms. Perez.
Please state your full name and spell your last name.
First is Blaine, B-L-A-I-N-E. Last name is Cousins, C-O-U-S-I-N-S.
How are you employed?
Post Falls police officer with Post Falls Police Department.
Back on January 3rd of this year, did you arrest?
Yes.
And where did you arrest him?
He was located at Alfalfa Loop in Post Falls, Idaho.
Okay. And just make sure you're not reading from your report. If you can refer to it, we can deal with that, but just go ahead and turn that over, okay? Officer, at that time and location, why did you arrest?
I had originally contacted previously back on, I believe, December 20th in the same area reference following an ECO home from the police department. That night specifically, there was a property watch list notification for our agency, which basically is a drive-through urban area of a location, whether it be an address, business, something like that. And that night was a location for her neighborhood. Specifically, I arrested him because earlier in the evening, on January 2nd, would have been, I received a call earlier tonight about a suspicious person in the area taking photographs of the residences in the neighborhood. When I went out to contact that reporting party, he advised photographs of residences. So,
okay, so let's just clarify. I just want to clarify what you said there. There was a call from a neighbor saying that someone matching his description was taking photographs. Is that right? Is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, sorry, sir. Pardon the interruption. Move on.
So, I feel like I should clarify something if I can. On the span in which I arrested him, there was 2 calls in the span of less than 10 hours regarding him, and that night was January 2nd. We received a suspicious call. He could not recall what kind of make or model it was, but he described it. He was wearing loud music, small silver car with unknown Washington plates. Based on my well-informed contacts with him, I believe that was to be him. So that night when I contacted him, which was less than 8 hours later, it was him again in the neighborhood. That evening as well, when that neighbor contacted him, he was 200 feet from the ECO's residence. When I came back and contacted him again, when I drove through the area, less than 8 hours later, he was 700 feet from the ECO's residence, and you have to drive by her residence to get to where he was. When I asked him about that, he kind of went back and forth in terms of why he was there. He initially said that he was there because he was taking pictures of the road, but that where he was pulled over at, however, that was 1,800 feet away from where he currently was. I also asked him if was in the neighborhood earlier in the evening, and he said no. I pushed him on that, and he then admitted yes, he was, and he was taking pictures of the road at that point in time. But now this time he needed to take pictures of the roadway signs, both of which were not anywhere regarding where he was pulled over initially for the traffic stop. It was only via the ECO's residence. So when I contacted him and seized him, referenced the phones, it was because I believe there was evidentiary value in terms of him taking photographs of her residence or her vehicles or an attempt to ascertain more information about her or her residence. So that's why they were seized.
Okay. Were those phones on his person or in his car? Do you know?
I believe one was on his person and one was on his passenger seat of his vehicle.
Okay. And you're aware, of course, well, shouldn't say of course. Are you aware that phones may take photographs?
I am.
Okay, and did those phones appear to have that capability?
They did.
Okay.
In fact, I believe he was recording me at the time.
Okay. All right, no further questions.
Mr. Logsdon, do you have any questions for this witness?
Just a few, Judge.
Go ahead.
Officer Cousins, I want to start with, it sounds like you dealt with him a few times while this case was ongoing. Is that right?
Correct.
And while you were doing that, did you learn anything else about him?
Objection relevance.
Sustained.
Let me be more specific. Did you become aware that he had been to other police stations and things like that, courthouses, recording them as well?
I was.
And were you also aware that he has some mental health issues?
I was advised that, yes.
And so this all goes on over a 2-week period, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Did your office wind up having multiple conversations with him about what it was that he was doing?
I believe so, sir.
Were you aware of the substance of any of those conversations?
Some of them, yes.
And well, let's move on then to this ECO. How is he connected to the ECO?
Well, besides, can you clarify that question, sir?
How does he get to know that this person even exists? What's the connection there?
Well, as far as I know, it was the original contact he had with her on 12/20. So that was when he was parked outside in the parking lot. She exited the building in her uniform, got in her personal vehicle, and left the police department en route home. And he followed her at that point in time.
So as far as you guys knew, all he knew about this person was that she worked with your agency, and he would have known probably her license plate. Is that it?
Correct, and what vehicle she drove, yes, sir.
And as you stated later when he was trying to get this information, your concern was that he was going to find out what her name was so he could find out where her address is?
Potentially, yes, sir.
But at the time that you pulled him over on January 3rd, he did not know her name or her address?
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
I'm not.
Your Honor, I don't think there's a speculation. The question is what facts he was aware of when he made the decision that my client was in the act of stalking.
I'll sustain the objection. The way it was worded directly required the witness to speculate as to what was in the mind of another person. So, try it again.
Thanks, you. Better question, officer. When you arrested him for stalking, did you believe that he knew the name or address of this person?
I wasn't sure.
just to be clear, there wasn't any kind of a civil protection order or any form of, he hadn't been trespassed from this area or anything like that?
At this point in time, at the point in time that I arrested him, I believe he was trespassed from the police department, but to my knowledge, he was not. Well, he potentially would have been trespassed from her residence or that, but I don't know if that happened or not. If it did, I had nothing to do with that aspect.
So you weren't aware that he was in violation of any kind of an order by being in that area?
Correct.
Were you aware that he was engaged in what he calls First Amendment audits?
Objection relevant.
Overruled.
So, I was. He recorded us on both pieces.
And so you had an understanding that his modus operandi is to take pictures of and record members of law enforcement and local government. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions, Judge. Thank you.
Any further questions for this witness, Ms. Perez?
No, Your Honor.
Any additional evidence from the state?
Yes, my next second hearing.